get either. It's confusing to me. He's posting pictures, dunking a basketball. He's in Baltimore taking pictures. He's on a podcast announcing this. And now everything kind of blows up. What happens with Maxx Crosby going forward?
Well, first off, when you fail the one physical, be careful. Call another sport. Correa failed the physical at the Mets. Went to San Francisco. They got nervous. They bailed. He ended up going back to Minnesota. Word spreads. Well, if the Ravens think he must be hurt, geez, I'm not going to go near him either. So that makes you think that Crosby, your point.
Let me jump on
maybe it's a cheap contract that you can, a cheap trade you can make to get him.
I do believe, at least in relation to that this morning, that Shefty and Graziano both talked about other doctors saying, listen, they believe that in a month or two, the physical look will look a lot better, and the expectation is that he should be ready, at least full go, by the middle of August, early September.
Okay, but that's, you got to take that on faith if you're another team.
Correct.
To make a move after the Ravens, a highly respected organization that's won a lot, bailed on him and had a need for him. That would make me, as a GM for another franchise,
not the first time they bailed.
I would be concerned by that, Stevie. I would be concerned.
Not the first time they bailed. Not the first time they bailed. They've bailed on a couple of occasions in the past, which is what Peter Schrager informed us about earlier this morning. So we know that, the Ravens are sticklers for that. That doesn't mean, that they're not a first-class organization. They still are. But what it does mean is because they dot I's and cross T's so thoroughly, and in some people's eyes excessively, it does beg the question as to whether or not people will be hesitant to do business with the Ravens moving forward, because you never know how much of a stickler that they are, for details in terms of, the health of a player, as they should be. And I don't think anybody's blaming them for it. I just think that if you believe that a team is going to be a bit hardcore with certain situations in terms of making the deal, sometimes you might be reluctant to do a deal with that team and find an easier path of resistance. That's all I mean by that. Nothing negative at all.
Yeah, so in relation to Maxx, obviously this has got to go through your organization and your doctors, all that stuff. Philadelphia should be on the phone. Philadelphia should be calling the Raiders about Maxx Crosby and figuring out what the cost is right now. And I think the reality for the Raiders right now is, are they willing to take 60 cents on the dollar now, or wait and maybe they get 80 cents on the dollar in 3 months, or maybe they get 25 cents on the dollar in 6 months? So if I'm Philadelphia, I'm trying to have that conversation. If I'm Buffalo, who just restructured Josh's salary to get under the cap, I'm having that conversation. If I'm the Los Angeles Rams, I'm calling the Raiders. I think there's obviously a lot of teams that should be in that conversation, but I'm looking at teams that truthfully are, if I'm Kansas City, who has 2 first-round picks, and they just restructured, I believe, Patrick, to get into a salary cap situation, I'm making that conversation as well. So if I'm those annual Super Bowl contenders, and you think that you can get him at a lesser value than he was a couple days ago, absolutely. Philly, Buffalo, the Rams, Kansas City, all should be making those calls.
I just want to point out, the teams that were linked to Crosby in the beginning, we're not hearing about anymore, that also made bids. The Cowboys, the Jaguars, the Bears. Those have not come up in conversations.
The Bears should be a team making a call.
But that's the first time I'm hearing you say this. And this has been happening for the last few hours
because maybe Ryan Poles and the Bears weren't willing to part with 2 firsts because they're still in their building process. But maybe it's 2 seconds. Or maybe it's a second this year and a second next year that becomes a first if he plays 80% of the snaps this year or something like that.
Well, bottom line is they're not getting 2 first-round picks now for Crosby.
Right.
That's over with. They're not getting, if the Ravens weren't going to do it, no other team's going to do it. Plus, the Rams don't have a first-round pick. They can't trade him to Kansas City.
Rams have a first-round pick.
I thought they traded to McDuffie.
They have 2 this year because the trade, so they have 13.
They have 13. Okay. Yep. I thought they had traded that pick to get McDuffie.
29.
They traded the 29th and they have the 13th. All right, so I stand corrected. But I don't think they're going to sit there and trade him to Kansas City. It's a divisional rival. You can't do that and have him in your building twice a year.
Sure.
That's a huge rivalry.
Sure.
Raiders-Chiefs is one of the biggest rivalries in sports.
Sure.
Buffalo doesn't have a high first-round pick. I don't think they're going to get the 2 1s for Crosby now after what the Ravens did.
2 2s, though? 2 2s?
Well, it's not 2 1s. And that's why the Raiders would be annoyed. They thought they got 2-1. Crosby fans, the physical, they took over the Ravens, and now they're stuck. Getting a lot less, as you said, 60 cents on the dollar. And they can't do it after the draft. They want to get this done before the draft.
It's a mess. Okay, so just to recap really quick, and then we're going to move on, because again, it was a huge sports day yesterday. We have a lot to get to. So Maxx Crosby, as of right now, is still a Raider. He is not a Raven. Trey Hendrickson is now becoming a Raven. They are working out their contract details. We'll see how this all transpires in the next 24 hours as it continues to evolve. Let's
No, I wouldn't say concerned is the right way of saying it. I'm curious.
Curious, okay.
Curious. Because I believe he will be clothed. I would be concerned if for some reason he would not be clothed, along with Courtney Cronin in for Kansas today. Michelle Smallman, Evan Cohen with you. Well, we in my house, we are Heat fans.
Sure.
So I was just wondering aloud, is he rocking his Bam jersey today?
That would be the play.
One would think. I don't know if I didn't suggest it. I want to stay out of it. He's 12 years old. See what he does. It's a big spot for him. If he doesn't, got to question his parents.
That's right.
I seriously, I think you have to question his parents.
So this is foreign to me because I went to Catholic school for 12 years. So my entire adolescence, I never once.
That's what you were saying.
I never once chose an outfit for school.
The reason that Smalls was
you
a
wore
little bit
a uniform.
distracted.
I wore a uniform.
She said I never chose my clothes for 12 years, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
I wore a uniform every
Which
day.
I think is a good move, by the way.
It was amazing because you could still have individual flair with your shoes and your hair, how you styled things. Now, when I went to high school, there was 3 polo shirt options. You had navy blue, you had the classic white, and you had butter yellow.
Butter.
Ooh, yep. So we
And
were
you can
ahead of the
choose
trend.
whatever you want.
With your skirt or with khakis, you could choose whatever you want.
So there's not specific Mondays or butter.
Nope.
Okay.
You could do whatever you want. And then some days I would wear knee-high socks and Mary Jane's. Some days I would wear my custom pink Nike Shocks, no big deal, with my name on the side. You couldn't tell me nothing when I wore those. But we're all still together wearing a uniform. So when you say that about your son choosing his outfit, it gave me a little bit of anxiety to think that if I was growing up every day, I would have to pick. I get anxiety trying to pick my outfit now. I can't imagine in school comparing yourself to your peers, what you would wear every day.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. I texted my wife, so we'll find out. Ravens backed out of this deal. They backed out of this deal. I have to say it that way until they fight back.
Well, that's what was on the press release.
That's what the Raiders put out there. Now, I don't know what the Ravens are going to do because in order for them to fight back, based on the reporting that we have seen, Adam Schefter obviously leading the way, there's a failed physical designation that maybe they would look at and say that's the reason we backed out. Now, Courtney Cronin, you do not believe this. No. Not believe Adam's reporting. You do not believe the Ravens' reasoning. Explain.
I don't, because they had enough medical information at the time that they agreed to the trade with the Las Vegas Raiders to know that Maxx Crosby was coming off of a procedure on his meniscus that happened in February, that he would not be ready right now. If you were to say, hey, go suit up and play a game, his knee's going to look very different now than it will in September when they're getting ready for week 1. They knew all of that. I think that the reaction from Friday to Wednesday and them realizing, as they see other free agent moves happening, as they see what the price of other players, where they've gone, what those things were, they realize they overpaid, because 2 first-round picks for a non-quarterback is always going to raise eyebrows, especially when you're on a team like the Ravens, that you have Lamar Jackson at 29 years old, and you're trying to win a Super Bowl and do it quickly with a new coaching staff. I feel like once they took a beat, they realized, ooh, looks a little desperate on our end. Maybe we want that number 14 pick. Maybe we don't want to give up next year's first in the process.
Wait, Court, can I interrupt and ask you a question on this? I'm sorry.
Sure.
Did they not realize that before? In your scenario, did they not realize that before? That's A. And B, if it's reactionary, wasn't the reaction by most, let's just call it NFL analysts, the people that have been there and done that, positive towards the Ravens?
First, to answer the first part of your question, of course they knew all this beforehand. Like, people think free agency starts like the day that Monday comes around and the legal tampering window opens. They have weeks of free agent meetings. They have the combine to utilize that time to talk with agents, to figure out what their plans are, who they're planning to go after, who they're planning to keep, who they're planning to let go. Yeah, they knew all that. They knew all that. Like, there's nothing new about Maxx Crosby going to get a physical yesterday and them saying, oh, like, wait, that popped up. We didn't know that. They had this information ahead of this. The only thing that changes on a Tuesday is that they have a chance to like physically lay eyes and touch him, like touch his knee, figure out like, okay, what does it feel like? Because he wasn't in the building until yesterday. He's the one who pointed out, hey, I'm in Baltimore. He took a picture of the stadium when he was out there and then took a picture of himself on the plane home. So they knew all that. The second part of your question was about the compensation, right?
No, it was about like the PR. Like a lot of times we see teams, like the most recent trade that a team backed out of in all sports to my knowledge was the Lakers Mark Williams Dalton Connect deal. Okay, so they traded a center. They traded Dalton Connect, their first-round pick shooter out of Tennessee, as well as a future first for a center and Mark Williams. And people thought the Lakers overpaid. Then they backed out. I didn't hear many people say, "Whoa, the Ravens overpaid on this one."
I think. I mean, look at Bill Barnwell. That's one of the foremost voices of people who like break down these sorts of things for ESPN.com. And I think that he pointed out the very obvious here that 2 first-round picks for a non-quarterback is extensive. And that's really expensive when you think of what it will preclude you from doing in the future. So I think that that's a big part of it. And then the name that we've brought up today, Trey Hendrickson, he's still out on the market. Adam Schefter was on Get Up yesterday talking about he wants to be in the range of Jalen Phillips at $30 million and Daniil Hunter at $40. If the Ravens are hearing that and thinking, maybe we could get him in here for cheaper than that, maybe just under that, still top of the line pass rusher money, but not record-setting deals, maybe that's a more cost-effective move than going and spending 2 first-round picks. So they found a way to creatively get out of this deal, because I don't think anybody's looking at this, 31 other teams, saying that their doctors would have not signed off on Maxx Crosby. Yes, everybody has a different tolerance for risk in terms of injuries and in terms of what you're willing to accept, but everybody knew that Maxx Crosby was not going to be the Maxx Crosby that we remembered of last season and seasons before right now on March 11th. He's still recovering from surgery. Like, it's too convenient of timing, and given the circumstances of how much they overpaid and the reaction to it, where I think that they felt that they needed to get out of it.
Okay, but Courtney, you said something interesting that sparked a thought for me. You said after they made this deal with the 2 first-round picks, they took a step back and said, maybe we were a little desperate there. Shouldn't the Ravens be desperate? Even if it was an overpay, shouldn't they be desperate? Shouldn't they be desperate to capitalize on this window with Lamar Jackson? Shouldn't they be desperate after you had to fire John Harbaugh and move in a different direction, and you're looking at the Seattle Seahawks winning the Super Bowl saying, if Sam Darnold can do it, why aren't we doing it? And that's no disrespect to Sam Darnold. But you have a 2-time, could have been 3-time MVP in Lamar. You have a team that is constantly put in that conversation of contending. So even if it's an overpay, I don't care. I want the Ravens to be desperate. I want the Buffalo Bills to be desperate. So when this first happened, I lauded them. I thought this was a great move for them. You're shoring up that defense. You're bringing in a guy who's also desperate to get out of the situation he's in and desperate to win. He's a leader. He's somebody that brings a certain personality type to this team.
Sure.
He could fit with Jesse Minter and what he's trying to build. I don't know.
But not